In the deepest chambers of the human soul lies a wound that is never healed, a primordial fracture that occurred the moment we first learned to hide our true nature from the world. This wound bleeds in silence, invisible to the naked eye, yet coloring every word we speak, every mask we wear, every judgment we cast upon the theater of human existence. This wound is older than memory, deeper than thought, more ancient than the first lie ever told. It was born in that sacred moment when innocence met the world's expectations and chose disguise over authenticity, performance over presence. Most souls walk through their entire earthly journey never knowing this wound exists, yet it whispers through their every interaction like a ghost that refuses to be laid to rest. The wound speaks in the language of projection, painting reality with invisible ink that only the awakened eye can decipher. It transforms everyone we meet into mirrors that reflect back our own forgotten pieces, our own rejected aspects, our own unlived possibilities dancing in the shadows of our awareness. Carl Jung, that brave explorer of the unconscious realms, once wrote, "The soul speaks through the very wounds we try to silence." And in that sacred wound lies the master key to seeing beyond the theatrical performance of human existence, to witness the raw, unguarded truth of who someone really is beneath their elaborate facade of social acceptability. Imagine this moment with vivid clarity. You sit across from someone you believed you knew intimately, a lover who has shared not just your bed, but your secrets, a friend who has witnessed your vulnerabilities, perhaps even the stranger who stares back from your mirror each morning with eyes that seem to hold mysteries you've never dared to explore. Their words flow like honey from a silver tongue, each syllable carefully chosen for maximum effect. Their gestures are practiced to perfection. Their smile is a masterpiece of social engineering, calibrated to disarm, to charm, to convince you that what you're seeing is the sum total of who they are. Yet something stirs in the ancient depths of your being, something that existed long before language carved up reality into categories, before civilization taught us the art of concealment, before the great forgetting that separated us from our primal knowing. This something recognizes danger through a wisdom that bypasses the mind entirely. Your soul recognizes what your intellect cannot yet name, the presence of the great pretender, the masterful architect of illusion, who has spent lifetimes perfecting the art of concealment. This is the one who has made deception into devotion, performance into prayer, masks into sacred objects that must never be removed. But tonight, under this moon of revelation, the veil grows thin. Tonight, the hidden shall emerge from its cave of shadows, and the concealed shall stand naked in the light of truth. Onward, thinkers. My name is Mister Halvig, and you're watching The Rational Wise. Tonight, we embark upon a pilgrimage into the shadowlands of human character, where Jung, that pioneering cartographer of the unconscious, discovered two sacred keys that unlock even the most fortified fortress of the hidden self. These are not mere psychological observations, but spiritual revelations, alchemical formulas that expose the very architecture of the soul itself. Jung spent decades mapping territories that others only visit in nightmares, descending into the underworld of the psyche and returning with treasures more valuable than gold. What he discovered will disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. For Jung realized that we are all walking around with our souls turned inside out, unconsciously projecting our innermost conflicts onto the screens of other people's lives, creating elaborate theaters where we play out the dramas we cannot bear to face within ourselves. Jung understood that the human psyche operates like an ancient alchemical laboratory, constantly transforming the raw ore of experience into either the gold of authentic awareness or the lead of self-deceptive illusion. This sacred process never stops, never rests, never takes a holiday from its eternal work of either elevation or degradation. He spent his life studying this mysterious inner chemistry with the precision of a scholar and the reverence of a priest. He watched souls ascend toward truth through the painful fire of self-confrontation and witnessed others descend deeper into the comfortable maze of their own carefully constructed delusions. In this mystical laboratory of the mind, Jung discovered the first sacred key to character revelation, what I call the shadow's confession. This is perhaps the most profound psychological truth ever uncovered. We inevitably condemn in others with passionate intensity what we most fear to acknowledge within ourselves. Our harshest judgments are not neutral observations, but confessions torn from the depths of our own souls, cries from our own imprisoned aspects begging for recognition and liberation. Listen closely to the passion that infuses someone's condemnation of others. Notice how their voice trembles with emotion that seems disproportionate when they speak with burning righteousness about selfish people who dare to put themselves first, or attention seekers who possess the audacity to shine brightly, or manipulators who wield social skills the speaker has buried beneath moral superiority. Jung wrote with hard-won wisdom, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That unconscious direction manifests most powerfully in our fiercest judgments, our most passionate criticisms. When someone burns with unusual intensity while dissecting another's character flaws, they are not merely observing. They are confessing the hidden contents of their own shadow, that dark repository where we store everything we've deemed unacceptable about our nature. Consider Sarah, whose life has become a towering monument to productivity and control. She labors late into every evening, her calendar transformed into a battlefield where minutes are conquered and spontaneity is treated as the enemy of success. Her desk is a shrine to efficiency, every paper in its ordained place, every task color-coded according to a system that would make military strategists weep. She moves through her days with mechanical precision, each moment allocated, each breath scheduled against some invisible standard of performance. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps more than you think. Now let's continue. Yet listen to the transformation in Sarah's voice when conversation turns to those she labels lazy people who waste their potential. The change is immediate and complete. Her controlled tone becomes edged with something sharper than professional disappointment, something rawer than career concern. Her colleagues recognize the warning signs, how her jaw tightens when someone mentions work-life balance, how her eyes flash with emotion that goes beyond ordinary disagreement. They witness micro-expressions of what looks remarkably like pain flickering across her face when someone speaks casually of vacation, of rest, of an unscheduled afternoon devoted to watching clouds drift across open sky. Jung would see through this performance with X-ray vision. Sarah's shadow confession reveals not superior work ethic, but her own buried longing for rest, her desperate hunger for permission to be imperfect, her soul's cry for the freedom she sacrificed on the altar of relentless achievement. Her condemnation of others' relaxation is actually self-condemnation disguised as moral superiority. Her criticism of their laziness is her own soul's desperate plea for the ease she believes she cannot have, without losing her identity as the one who never fails, never stops, never allows herself the luxury of being human. The intensity of her judgment measures the exact depth of her wound. The louder her criticism of others' lack of discipline, the more desperate her soul's cry for what she has forbidden herself. She has become both prisoner and warden of her own internal jail, and her anger at those who live freely is the sound of her own chains rattling in darkness. This shadow confession operates beyond conscious control. It's the soul's involuntary testimony about its own rejected territories. Jung discovered we can read someone's deepest conflicts by listening to their harshest judgments, their most passionate criticisms. The person who rails against fake people struggles most desperately with their own authenticity. The one who despises weakness is terrified of their own vulnerability being exposed. The one who attacks attention seekers is dying inside from their unmet need to be truly seen and valued. The shadow always tells the truth, even when the conscious mind believes it's making objective observations about others. Yet there exists a second key, equally profound in its revelations. The second sacred key Jung uncovered pierces even deeper into the mystery of hidden character. I call it the moment of unmasking. That precious, terrible instant when someone's meticulously crafted persona cracks under pressure like fine porcelain struck by an unexpected blow, revealing the raw character that lives beneath the performance. Jung wrote with the weight of hard-earned wisdom, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet most souls exhaust themselves maintaining elaborate illusions of who they think they should be, who they believe they must be to earn love, acceptance, or survival in a world that seems to punish authenticity. This exhausting masquerade requires enormous psychic energy, creating invisible fault lines that run through their personality like hairline fractures. These stress points remain hidden under normal conditions, but inevitably reveal themselves when sufficient pressure is applied. Watch what happens when someone's carefully maintained image is suddenly threatened, when their competence is questioned by someone whose opinion carries weight, when they're caught in a mistake they cannot explain away, when they face unexpected criticism from someone whose approval they desperately need. Do they attack like a wounded animal protecting territory? Do they retreat into victim consciousness, wrapping themselves in the cloak of the wronged innocent? Do they deflect and blame others, becoming masters of misdirection? Or do they pause, breathe deeply, and respond from authentic ground with presence that only comes from self-acceptance? I witnessed one of these profound unmaskings in a corporate boardroom where Michael sat at the head of a polished table. For years, Michael had cultivated an identity as the company's philosophical sage, the unflappable leader who could be counted upon to remain calm in any storm. His office walls were lined with books on Eastern wisdom. He spoke in measured tones about emotional regulation, often quoting ancient texts with reverence. Colleagues sought his advice, drawn by his apparent serenity and reputation for never losing composure. His persona was that of a modern Confucius in an expensive suit, a man who had transcended the petty emotions that plague lesser mortals, someone who had achieved inner peace that made him naturally suited for leadership positions. But when a younger colleague, someone he had mentored and trusted, asked a question containing gentle but unmistakable challenge to his authority, the transformation was instantaneous and complete. The philosophical mask didn't slip gradually, it shattered all at once. Michael's voice, which moments before carried measured wisdom, became sharp as a blade. His eyes narrowed to predatory slits. His body language shifted from open wisdom keeper to defensive combatant preparing for war. The wise philosopher vanished, replaced by something primitive. An insecure child wielding corporate power like a weapon, lashing out with desperate fury at having his most guarded secret, his deep insecurity, accidentally exposed by someone he trusted. In that single moment, Michael revealed more truth about his character than years of polished presentations had concealed. Under pressure, when his mask cracked, his authentic patterns emerged. Defensiveness masquerading as strength, insecurity wrapped in wounded pride, fear dressed as righteous authority. Jung understood these moments of unmasking are sacred gifts, windows into the soul's true condition. They show whether someone has integrated their difficulties through conscious work or remains enslaved by unconscious patterns controlling them like invisible puppet strings. The most evolved souls, those Jung called individuated, show consistency between their public face and crisis response. They don't fragment under pressure because there are no hidden pieces to break apart. They've done the work of accepting themselves completely, shadow and light united in wholeness. But for most of us, these moments reveal the painful split between who we pretend to be and who we actually are when the masks fall away. Now we arrive at the deepest teaching, the revelation that transforms psychological insight into spiritual awakening. Jung wrote with authority earned through personal transformation. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Here lies the ultimate truth that most who study human behavior never grasp. Every judgment you make, every character assessment you perform, every shadow you recognize in another, all of it is a mirror reflecting your own soul's landscape back to you with perfect, merciless accuracy. The person who irritates you most profoundly is your greatest teacher, showing you with painful precision the disowned aspects of your own being that you buried so deep you've forgotten they exist. They are walking embodiments of your rejected parts, living reminders of qualities you've decided are unacceptable in yourself. The traits you admire most desperately in others often represent your own unlived potential, your own undeveloped capacities cast outward because you fear to claim them as your own. When you master character recognition, you discover you are not merely reading others. You are reading the sacred text of your own becoming. Every human encounter becomes a classroom where the curriculum is self-knowledge, where every lesson points back to the depths of your mysterious nature. Jung discovered this mirror effect operates in developmental layers. First, you see others' patterns while remaining blind to your own identical patterns. You become an expert diagnostician of everyone else's issues while your own remain invisible. Then you begin recognizing your own patterns intellectually while still being emotionally controlled by them. You might think, I'm projecting, while still feeling justified in your judgment. You see the trap but cannot yet step out. Finally, you develop what Jung called the transcendent function, the capacity to hold opposing forces within your nature in creative tension without being torn apart, to embrace paradox as the natural state of complex beings. This is the ultimate character assessment, not the ability to expose others' masks, but the courage to remove your own, not the skill to spot others' shadows, but the wisdom to embrace your own darkness as the doorway to authentic light. Jung understood consciousness as the goal, the ongoing practice of becoming aware of what was previously unconscious, the daily discipline of choosing response over reaction, the moment-by-moment decision to show up authentically rather than performatively. When you operate from this integration, something miraculous occurs. Your presence alone invites others into greater authenticity. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Your refusal to participate in unconscious projection games creates space for entirely new kinds of interaction. People sense this shift. You seem different, calmer, more real. What they're sensing is your decreased reactivity to their unconscious material. Some will resist this transformation. Your authenticity will frustrate those who depend on unconscious patterns for identity. But others will be drawn to your consciousness like flowers to light, sensing the possibility of more genuine connection." Let me know what you think in the comments. I read every single one. And of course, subscribe for more high-value content. Jung spent his life pointing toward this revelation. Individual consciousness is not personal luxury, but sacred responsibility to human evolution. When you cease projecting your shadow, when you stop hiding behind personas, when you choose conscious response over unconscious reaction, you create ripples that awaken others to their own possibilities. Your willingness to face your character honestly gives others permission to do the same terrifying, liberating work. Your authenticity becomes a beacon in a world drowning in performance, living proof that it's possible to be both fully human and genuinely real. Your courage to remove masks creates safety for others to risk authenticity. Your willingness to embrace your shadow gives others permission to explore their darkness without shame. Your commitment to consciousness becomes an invitation for others to step from unconscious patterns into aware choice. Remember always, the two sacred keys Jung discovered, the shadow's confession and the moment of unmasking, are not weapons to wield against others, but mirrors to hold up to your own soul. instruments of self-discovery, tools for the sacred work of transformation. The character you're ultimately developing is not someone else's, but your own. The masks you're learning to see through are not just theirs, but yours. The shadows you're learning to recognize are not merely their projections, but your own disowned aspects calling across darkness for integration, acceptance, and love. Your journey toward consciousness begins with the courage to see clearly, both in others and in yourself, and ends with becoming who you were always meant to be. Beyond the wounds that once defined you, beyond the masks that once protected you, beyond the judgments that once imprisoned you, into the terrible and beautiful truth of your most authentic self. Onward, thinkers!